Welcome to the Forward Moves podcast, a place where we talk about all things operations and marketing for your fitness business.
And where we bring on industry-leading guests to help you get the inside scoop.
I'm your host, Ash.
And I'm your co-host, Kira. And let's get into the episode of today. So today we have someone with us who cuts the bullshit on lazy health advice and breaks the barriers on conventional medicine, one blood marker and stool sample at a time. Dr. Daniel Kirkbride, welcome to the podcast.
Amazing. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
You're so welcome. We spent so long putting that intro together yesterday.
Well,
thank you. I just stumbled on my own words, but that's okay.
I can make my own intro that good. I have to take you with me everywhere.
Well, it was poo sample and we changed it to stool sample.
sample.
Nice.
Because we thought poo sample might give us the giggles. But
your work is so interesting. I'm so excited to dive into it.
Thank you.
Very, very interesting.
Looking at poo is interesting, yes.
the results from it more than
Yeah.
I
had one
just
client
to clear that up.
who I recommended a stool test to, and he said, "How does it work? Do you like come to my place and?"
What?
I'm like, no. I just read the report. He's like, "Oh, so you don't actually like assess the stool?" I'm like, "No, that's a pathology lab."
No, I'm not going to sit there with my hands cupped behind you.
That's the VIP program.
Oh, that's so funny.
Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about you?
Yeah, I guess short version is I'm a personal trainer turned osteopath turned functional medicine practitioner over a period of probably the last decade, 11 years, been in the health and fitness space. Now I predominantly work online. I run an online health optimization longevity company. We mainly work with high achievers, high performers like athletes and people who have had health conditions or like symptoms for a period of time and they haven't found solutions through conventional medicine. So usually people who come to us are, they're either one or two categories. They're struggling with, energy, brain fog, bloating, some sort of health condition they can't resolve naturally, and they're fed up with going through the medical system. Or the second type of person is usually like your entrepreneur, your business owner, people like you who you're pretty dialed in, you're performing at a high level, but you want to know how you can maintain that level without, burning yourself out or burn the candle at both ends like a lot of us do.
Beautiful. And you say you have a team?
I'm the main practitioner, but I've got like a support team.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
How long have you had a team for?
Honestly, probably like the last almost 6 to 12 months. Before that, I was very much just like most practitioners, just doing everything myself. And then, I realized can't do everything on your own and probably need some support here.
The power of outsourcing.
Yeah, which I've always known that, but I guess it's hard to give away some of your tasks initially. I think you're so used to doing everything on your own. Like when I was a PT, it was all solo. When I had my clinic, it was all solo. It's definitely hard to do initially, but I think, once you do it and you see the benefits of it with one person, you're like, oh my God, all right, I need 5 more people.
You start to try and get rid of more and more things after you realize that there is some bits that you can let go.
Yeah, at first it's hard to let it go. And then after a while, you're like, I don't do anything anymore. I just palm it all off.
So what's your role now? Is it just basically creating the strategies and programs?
Pretty much just fulfillment now. Like I still do a lot of the day to day. Like I'm definitely not at the level of like a massive corporation, 10x health style in America yet. But I'd say that's the direction I want to head to, is more like having a company structure. At the moment, it's like a lot of contractors and a couple of VAs, but I'm still the one doing most of the stuff. Fortunate to have like people in good places, like a marketing manager, graphics, video editor, like all the things that aren't consulting I've outsourced. But when it comes to onboarding, fulfillment, writing the programs, assessing the blood work, assessing the DNA, the stool, not at people's house, that's all still me. But I think what I've realized in the last few months particularly is by outsourcing all the other stuff, I was about to say all the other shit, metaphorically, by outsourcing all the other stuff, it's, definitely probably halved my time, which means like previously, I guess I always used to cap myself and say, I can only work with 50 people max. Now I could probably comfortably work with 150 people without dropping the quality, because I'm not spending 20 hours a day in DMs and creating content and in ChatGPT and in Canva and in Zapier and Go High Level doing things that I shouldn't be doing, that I'm not very good at, that someone's a lot better at, that I could pay to do.
Oh, very nice. You've optimized that business.
I'd say it's better. Yeah. But there's definitely a lot of improvement for sure.
Yeah.
But I think just having the awareness now is good, because 6 months ago I would have been like, nah, I'm just going to do it. Like if I don't do it, it won't get done properly, which is good and bad because it means you have high standards, but also it really can be a bit of a toxic behavior because then you never outsource anything and you're stuck in go high level making automations when you should be coaching.
How long did it take to get a return on investment with doing that?
It's hard to be tangible on it because I think if business coaches listening to probably want to pull their hair out because they're like, you should know these things. But I really didn't start assessing my stats until like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So I don't really know to give you a specific number, but I'd say just from me understanding like how much time I was spending in different areas and like seeing the business grow, I'd say like probably 3 months.
That's good.
The first few, and the only reason it was 3 months and not faster is because I had no business structure before that in terms of, I'm probably being harsh on myself. I had internal structure in my own head, but I didn't have like SOPs and like, here's how we onboard a client and here's how we do a payment and here's the email you should send if there's a failed payment. It was kind of just like, I'm going to hire a VA and then good luck.
Yeah.
And then, you know,
all of the knowledge in my brain.
Yeah. I'm like, why'd you email that? Like, why didn't you do it this way? It's like, well, I haven't told them to do it that way. So it's my own fault. So I guess the last 9 months or so for me has been like a big step into like leadership and how to communicate effectively and take what's out of my head and put it into a system and then try and teach that system to someone else and not get mad at someone for doing something wrong when I'm the problem, which is hard to swallow initially that you're the problem.
Yeah,
but you're always
it
the
is
problem.
really hard. Have you seen the new app on the market? It's called Scribe.
No.
It's like Scribe AI, and it's an AI platform like Loom, but you record what you're doing and it creates SOPs for you.
Is that like Glitter AI? I think it's pretty similar. Like you create
Yeah,
SOPs.
it's like you click on the different parts of the page and it'll like remember where you clicked and it'll create SOPs for you and it like notes it all down of like the steps that you did for yourselves,
right.
which is pretty cool.
Sounds similar. Yeah, that's amazing.
Probably a bit late now, but
Well, like it's crazy how much output you can get too. Like there's really no excuse. Like even today, I had a client who messaged me, like, you know, my back's really sore. Like what should I be doing? And back in the day, you know, I'd have to like sit down and build out a whole thing. Now I'm just like, I've got my exercise library. I've got what they need to do. Went on to ChatGPT, put in my exercises, put in my prescription, was like, turn this into a PDF, bang, put it into a Notion board, send it to my VA, make this pretty. Now we have a lower back pain, acute, injury rehabilitation plan. Boom.
Stunning.
Like 30 seconds.
Love that.
Crazy. So yeah, I think there's really no excuse for not having systems now with the level of output you can create.
yeah, it takes a long time to get a good system though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I really want to dive into the functional side of what you do because I find it so interesting.
Yeah.
So the title is functional medicine practitioner. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Integrated medicine. It's
Do you
a bit
wanna
of a,
break down what that is for everyone listening?
yeah. So I'd say the easiest way to explain it would be like natural medicine, which sounds a bit fluffy, I guess. The way I would describe it would be like conventional medicine is, you know, you go see a doctor, a general practitioner doctor, where generally they're looking at your health through a lens of disease management or disease prevention sometimes, if you're lucky. And it's designed to, you know, obviously use medications and things like that to try and treat people's conditions. Versus with functional medicine, the whole idea is we're looking at the body more holistically and trying to understand A, can we prevent those things happening in the first place? And B, through interventions, the main difference is like we're using nutrition, supplementation, lifestyle, environment changes to try and prevent people from getting to the point where they have disease and illness in the first place. And if you do have disease and illness, what's like the root cause of that thing and how can we potentially change the things I mentioned before rather than just give you a pill for every ill?
Yeah, I see you post a lot around of blood markers, right? And how GPs look at it from a larger scope.
Oh, yeah. So I guess that'd be more like conventional medicine or conventional blood ranges versus optimal, or I don't like the word functional. It makes everything sound woo-woo, but like I guess functional blood markers or conventional ranges. I guess the easiest way to explain it is imagine you had 100 people and they all got a blood test done and you had to create the average. It makes sense that the 100 people you test is going to give you the data that's going to build you the graph of what's high and what's low. Now imagine, which don't imagine actually, this is like fact, 61% of Australians back in 2022 are living with at least one chronic disease. So like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, which is pretty wild, 61%, 6 out of 10 people.
Yeah. That's
So
wild.
if you take 100 people and 60% of those people are sick and you get the average ranges, would you agree that the ranges are going to be a little bit whack, potentially?
Yeah. It generally would be like a worse, that would be normal.
Yeah, you'd expect the ranges to be pretty bad comparatively to if we got, let's say, 100, LeBron Jameses to get their blood test done. Novak Djokovic maybe is a better example, like an athlete who's really dialed in and puts his health first. If you get 100 Novak Djokovic's, you can understand the ranges are probably going to be very, very different in terms of what's normal versus what's optimal. So that's the first sort of problem. Second problem is when you look at the ranges themselves, because of the first problem, it means the range ends up being really wide. So one example is like white blood cells, which is an indication of your immune system. The normal reference range in conventional blood work, if you go see a doctor, is 4 to 11. Pretty big. In functional ranges or optimal ranges, it's 5.5 to 7.5.
Right.
It's like that's here versus here. So I guess the main difference is when I look at it, I go, well, other practitioners who do what I do, look at it. You're looking at it like you have a really, really narrow green spot, which is your optimal. This is like optimal health. And I guess if we think about the definition, just because you don't have disease doesn't mean that you're optimally healthy. Like it's kind of saying you're not broke, so you're rich. Mm-hmm. Like they're not mutually exclusive. So the green zone or the optimal zone is very narrow. And then from there, it's like you've got yellow, you've got orange, you've got red. And in functional medicine, because we're using much narrower reference ranges, it means we can pick up on things in that yellow or orange zone before it gets to the point where it's in the red, which usually the timeline to get from that yellow to that red zone is anywhere from 18 to 24 months. So that's a long time where you could be experiencing brain fog, bloating, low energy, skin conditions, hormonal conditions, and you go see the doctor, and because you're in that yellow zone, it's like, it's not quite bad enough to get diagnosed, but you're not quite good enough to be in green. I call this the purgatory zone, where you're kind of like, what the, can I swear?
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on? And this is the zone that I was in back in 2020 that kind of got me into this space that I'm in now, is you're not optimally healthy, but you're also not bad enough to be diagnosed with disease. And you're kind of in that, like, nobody can help me. I don't really know what's wrong. Doctors are telling you that your blood work's normal. Everything's fine. Just take this pill, or, just it's in your head. But there is something, it's not that something's wrong with you, but you're definitely far from optimal, and you're probably operating at 6 out of 10. So that's, in a nutshell, what the difference is and why I'm pretty passionate about doing this, because I would say 99 out of 100 people who come see me and they say their blood test is normal. And then when I look at it, I'm like, well, hey, it's far from normal. And I'm not just trying to fearmonger and say something's wrong. I'm just trying to bring to your awareness something you're not aware of that is, potentially causing the symptoms you're experiencing. And, at worst, it's going to be, if you leave it, it can develop into something more sinister. At best, it's just you leaving 30, 40% on the table. And if you're someone like you and me, and you're like, I want to be dialed and be the best I can be, if you're operating at 6 out of 10 for a year, 3 years, like how much potential are you leaving on the table in business, life, relationships, health? Not something I want to do.
So was it something that happened to you specific? Because you said this is when you got really into it in 2020. So did you go through a test and it was like there was something wrong, but not wrong enough to do anything? Is that when you started to get super invested into it?
Yeah. So I went through pretty bad burnout and pretty bad, state of health back in 2020, like late 2020, early 2021. And I think it was a combination of things, just working hard, burning the candle, both ends, not living the best lifestyle, a number of factors, but it doesn't really matter. I got to a point where I was really, really struggling. I could barely go to the gym. Like I remember vividly being in Adelaide at the time, trying to do a dumbbell shoulder press, and I had 10 kilo dumbbells, very weak little 10 kilo dumbbells, and I could barely do 2 sets without feeling like I had to go and have a nap. So like I was pretty bad. Fatigue was really bad. I wasn't able to practice anymore at my clinic because I just felt like I was going to fall asleep while I was treating people. No libido, which is, pretty wild for a, how old was I at the time? 25-year-old male. So something was definitely wrong, but saw the doctor. Everything's normal. I remember he vividly told me, your cholesterol is the lowest I've ever seen. That's amazing. I was like, isn't cholesterol important for hormone synthesis? And my testosterone is really low, and I feel like I don't have any libido right now. Like, no, it's really good. So it was like, I kind of knew there was something not wrong. I wasn't an expert back then. I was kind of just, back then I just finished my PT. I was doing PT. I was kind of doing osteo. I wasn't really like super into the functional medicine stuff, but I was kind of like, okay, something's not right. I don't feel right. Something's not, 100% here, but I'm not really getting any answers. And then saw another doctor, and the next doctor was, maybe you're depressed because your mood's low. And I remember he asked me to fill out this document where it had a photo of the smiley faces, like as a graph. And it's like the really happy face and then the sad face and the neutral. And it's like, I feel sad sometimes. And you had to circle it based off like, I feel sad all the time. I occasionally feel sad, and I'm never sad. Like, I'm a pretty happy person, but I guess every now and then I feel a bit sad. I'll scribble in the middle one. Like, I'm not going to lie and be like, I'm happy all the time, but I'm not depressed. And then I gave him the sheet back and he's like, so I think we'll put you on a prescription, antidepressants and blah, blah, blah. I was like, what do you mean, mate?
That's what I filled out a form similar before too, where wild. I was like, oh yeah, like super low energy, blah, blah. They filled out this form and I was like, why am I filling this form? And she's like, oh, you might be depressed. And I was like, yeah, I'm just a bit sleepy. Like, I was like, yeah, ended up being like low B12 and like some other like normal vitamins and stuff. But like, it's just crazy how quick they're like, you might be depressed. Like that is crazy.
It's wild, eh? So yeah, it's no shade on GPs and doctors. It's just, that's my experience. And unfortunately the experience of a lot of people I work with as well, where it's like they go for answers. They're in that yellow orange zone, the purgatory zone. They're not, autoimmune disease, cancer yet, but they're also not jumping out of bed 10 out of 10. They're in that sort of shitty middle part where it's like, well, I want to feel elite and I'm not feeling great. I want some answers. And unfortunately the way that the system and the assessment tool is set up is like, it's not assessing for the right thing. It's kind of like, go into your accountant to try and fix your car. It's like the accountant's not bad, the mechanic's not bad, but like this is not a really good mix. So if you're looking to go to a GP or a doctor for health optimization, longevity, you're barking up the wrong tree. If I cut my arm off and I've got a severe disease and I need antibiotics and I want to, save my life, amazing. But it's not health optimization, it's sick care management. So I think it's just, that's where the confusion lies.
Out of curiosity, you speak about how like people are frustrated with the medical system. Do you get a lot of females coming to you?
Yeah.
With frustrations around not knowing what's going on?
100%. Females are probably 70%. I think that's purely just because females tend to be more proactive. Men, this is my anecdotal experience, but I think men tend to be very stubborn and we wait until the problem's really bad. Example A, I waited until it's pretty bad to do something about it. But then when you commit, you commit. I find with the females that I worked with, it's like I probably get a lot more females who are proactive, but then they tend to not want to follow through and they're a bit like, want to feel into it, that sort of thing, which just makes sense, the difference between male and female. But yeah, for sure, like high incidence of females who reach out. Second thing is there's a much higher incidence of autoimmunity in females just because of genetic differences in terms of X and Y chromosomes. So yeah, females in particular, I'd say the biggest issues of females, gut issues, skin issues, thyroid issues, and obviously cycle hormone things, which cycle and hormone things are always bottom of the food chain, but like they'll be the most common symptom that presents first. And that makes you generally aware of your problem.
I was going to say, I wonder if it's because there's like a very notable thing that can change like quite fast. That would be a reason why more women would go, actually something's happening. Like, yeah.
Well, it's your litmus test of function, eh?
Yeah.
Like if you're tracking, that's another thing. I'd say probably 50-50 on girls who are aware of their cycle and then 50-50 girls who have their head in the sand. So I'd say if you're someone who's like pretty dialed in, you're like, I'm tracking my cycle with some sort of tracker and I'm aware. And then straight away you go from a, 28-day cycle to a 40-day cycle or, normal bleed to a really painful bleed, or you're missing cycles. And like, that's a very obvious warning sign, but you'd be surprised. Like lots of girls get that for 3-6 months and then they don't do anything until 6 months down the track. And then they come to me like, oh, so I haven't had a cycle in 12 months. Like, do you think that's
crazy to me?
Like, yeah, 100% that's a problem.
I feel like because when we go conventional, they're like, just get on the pill.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. You have acne, go on the pill. If you miss a period, go on the pill. You can't lose weight, go on the pill.
Do you find that obviously like the conventional medicine system, it is broken in a way because there's so many issues that come from it. Do you find that they kind of work against what you do, or? I
mean, I have friends who are doctors, GPs, and there's good ones out there. It's definitely not a anti-medical system. I think it just comes down to, like I've always said the same, like, the medical system's broken, conventional system's broken. And then I was like, how do I fix this and be productive rather than just, shit on it? Because I think, people are very, like, there's a lot of people on social media, especially now with the increase in alternative health. It's like every second coach or like person you come across on social media is now like a holistic health coach and, it's anti-medical system and the system's trying to kill us, which I think it's good in a way that everyone's getting more awareness, but at the same time, it's like kind of bastardizing as a whole industry and then not really doing anything about it to make it better. So I'm kind of thinking, how can I flip that and go, how can we actually make it a productive conversation? And I think the productive way to look at it is it's not broken. It's just set up very poorly in the sense of what we're expecting from it versus what it's delivering. Like, again, the analogy of, I'm not going to a doctor to tell me how to be, healthy and how to perform at peak. I'm going to a doctor if I have a serious health concern. So I think it's just, different lens to look through maybe. But it's definitely not set up great in terms of health optimization, that's for sure.
They've primarily been trained around like how to be reactive instead of like proactive.
Yeah. But even their training, like, they only study blood work and nutrition for less than 6 weeks. So, and when you look at it, like the biggest lever, in my opinion, to pull when it comes to what's going to drive you closer to disease or what's going to help, can't technically say reverse disease, but might make you better and have a less chance of getting disease is going to be nutrition, what you put in your mouth. And he spends less than, 6 weeks training on nutrition. So that's the massive problem, in my opinion, is like they don't have a fundamental understanding of the most fundamental thing in human health, which is food.
Yeah, that is actually
Like you can
wild. 6 weeks isn't even a semester.
No.
No.
I mean, even osteo, I studied, actually we studied more than that. We studied 2 semesters, which is, 1 year. But even then it was just very poor. So it's like when you start going back, it's like it's a problem at a government level where it's like, well, the government controls the education platform in terms of the unis and what they teach in. And then the information comes from up top. So it's like, it's a whole, problem from up top to downstream. I can't choose what I learn when I go to uni, and the doctor can't choose how long they spend at nutrition. I'm sure there's a lot of them who are like aware of this and they're like, I want to study more, but the curriculum is here. We're going to teach you medication, teach you things to fix the problem before, when in reality, it probably should be, let's spend 20% of our time there and spend 80% of our time making sure people don't get to the problem in the first place.
Yes.
So is your doctorate in osteo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not an MD.
How long did it take you to get that?
Which is funny. People are always like, he's not a real doctor. He's not an MD. I'm like, well, to be fair, I don't know if I want to be an MD because 80% of those patients end up coming to me anyway. So if you did your job properly.
If you did your job properly, then you wouldn't end up with a job.
used to offend me a while ago. I'd be like, oh shit. Now I'm like, it doesn't offend me. I don't actually want to be an MD because, yeah. But sorry, what was your question? Bit of a piss take.
How long did it take you to get your doctorate?
Huh? We studied for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. At uni. So it's pretty long. I mean, in hindsight, it's not very long, but like at the time it feels very long. It's pretty intensive. Like we do 12 to 14 exams per semester. So like some of my mates who are studying, what do you call it? Like English-based subjects. What's that other one called? Like arts?
Like creative arts. Or
yeah, like those ones.
Yeah,
I had a few mates doing that and like just, teaching is another one. And they'd have like 1 or 2 exams and they'd be done. In uni, like you've got the 3-week exam period. I don't know if it's the same now. It's like 5 years ago, but probably longer than that, 7 years ago. Yeah, I'm getting old. But you'd have 3 weeks of exams, Monday to Friday. And I remember for a few semesters there, we'd have 1 exam or sometimes multiple exams every day for the entire 3 weeks. So like day 1 to day 15 of the exam period. Ooh. And some of my mates would have their exams all done on like the Wednesday of week 1. They're like, sweet as, got like 4 weeks of holidays and going out drinking and having fun, doing things. And I'm sitting there like, I got to study for another 2 weeks. So it wasn't fun. But in hindsight, it's crazy. Like you do so much. But then looking back when I graduated, I feel like I still knew nothing about nothing. It was like, I know how not to kill someone.
Mm.
That's good.
I feel like that's like the main thing out of being certified. And then it's pretty much just like hands-on experience from then on.
Yeah, 100%. For sure. I think not everything I've learned. I think uni gives you a good fundamental understanding of like, from my example, like biology, physiology, chemistry, fundamentals of nutrition, human movement. Like you get the fundamentals, but I would say 95% of what I practice now has definitely come from mentorship, programs, investing in courses and mentors and, practical application as well. I was fortunate in the sense of being a PT while I studied. So, I got the opportunity to work with people for 5 years at the same time as learning. So I go to uni, learn something cool, and then go to Good Life in the evening and get paid to learn. I get paid to apply that with clients and, definitely I think accelerated the results beyond.
I was going to say that would definitely help being able to action things straight away because it's like learning it, actioning it, cementing it. So like I feel like you would have learned like
and
way faster.
It was great.
Yeah.
I meant to go on like McDonald's and Kmart and I was like, okay, I get to go practice my rehab skills for 5 hours and get paid. Amazing.
Yeah,
So,
are you regulated by a board in what you do?
yeah, UPRA.
APRA, yeah.
So UPRA is the scary one and they regulate medical doctors, osteopaths, chiropractors, I think psychologists and a few other allied health pros. And did I say physios?
Yeah, I heard they just cracked the whip lately.
Probably. They're pretty strict on things. You got to be pretty strict with like what you say and what you don't say on social media, which is good. Like I used to be a bit like, oh, it's really annoying. They're really strict and like anal. Like they do make life really tough for you. Like when it comes to marketing, like it's very strict. Like you can't do any testimonials. So if you go on my social media, there's never any testimonials. And that's a really annoying business because people are like, oh, like, can you show me that works for me? Like I don't see any social media testimonials. It's like, it's because I literally can't. Like you can do behind closed doors if you email me or like, you know, we're having a conversation on a Zoom call and someone's like, if you work with someone with this and you have a testimonial there, but even then it's like a bit of a gray area. I couldn't post on a landing page or create a website and have like, you know, before Dan, I was struggling with A and then I have B.
Why is that exactly? Okay.
Can't have testimonials just basically because we can't guarantee that anyone's going to get a result. So I could do the exact same protocol with you, and we can't guarantee you're both going to get the same result. Everyone's individual. So I guess it's really just to, you know, avoid people getting false hope on getting cures or, you know, results from a certain type of treatment, which is annoying. It's good in the sense because it means you can't say outrageous things like, you know, so-and-so had cancer and they saw me and I cracked their back and now their cancer's gone. You know, so like, obviously it serves a purpose, but obviously it makes it quite challenging for, I'd say, both the practitioner because you can't really promote yourself. I mean, practitioners do, they all find sneaky ways to do it in gray areas, but I'd say it's hard to promote yourself normally with like landing pages and testimonials and stuff like that. So you got to be very savvy with your marketing. And I also say for the consumer, because like if you're a consumer and you have back pain and you go on Google and you type in Gold Coast osteo, what's going to come up? It's going to be 20 different osteos. It's like, how do I decide which osteo is good? So you're usually going to rely on obviously word of mouth referral, which is where most practitioners get their referrals from and build their business, which is a great way to build business, obviously. Referrals are the best clients. But I think it's hard for the client because it's like, well, it'd be a lot easier just to jump on my website and see 100 reviews and, you can't do reviews either. Form a testimonial.
I was about to ask, can you do Google reviews?
Google reviews, technically, yes, because I don't have control over it.
And because you didn't ask for them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't ask. Yeah, you just happened to leave one and, you know, amazing. But like, yeah, you can, I think it's changed now because like they said something, I was speaking to a friend about this and he said, obviously if it's on Google, like you have to reply to them asking them to take it down. And if you don't reply, asking them to take it down, then you can technically be in trouble because you didn't ask them to take it down. But it's a bit more lenient, I would say, versus with Facebook, it's like you can delete the review. So if you don't delete it, it's like, well, you left it there.
Right.
So
you could be like, oh, leave me a review. And then I'll be like, no, don't. And then just like leave it.
Yeah. Well, like, if I replied to you being like, hey, take it down and you don't take it down, like,
there's nothing you can do about it.
I can't go to a house and physically, you know, kick a door down. And like,
I'm just dying right. I'm looking up at osteo and all the reviews like, hey, please take this down. Please take this down.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things where like, obviously, you know, if you were to come into my clinic and, you know, there was a conversation about leaving one and I was to forecast what was to happen and that happens, it's kind of hard to trace it. But yeah, it's obviously a bit weird to be like, hey, can you leave me a testimonial? But I'm going to have to tell you to take it down. But when that happens, you'll know and don't do it.
Yeah. What a weird conversation.
So, yeah, I think the best way is just don't mess with opera. You know, you spend 5 to 7 years at uni studying. You probably don't want to lose your license over something silly. So follow the rules like I do, obviously, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the reason why you can't leave testimonials, which is good and bad. Yeah, I think it's probably a net positive so that you don't have a bunch of people in our industry being unregulated and, you know, making crazy claims. But it does make it challenging sometimes to speak your mind because you feel like you have a muzzle on. You can't say certain things. I kind of said before, like about COVID, during COVID, wherever you sit on the pendulum, all good. But, you know, we received an email from APRA pretty much as COVID lockdown happened, being like, if you speak anything, it's like against what the government is saying, you will be deregistered. So it's like straight away, it's like, okay, well, you've now muzzled you've muzzled the health and medical practitioners who are the experts in health and medical. So now we're basically, all the medical health guidelines are really just government guidelines and legislation. They're not actually medical.
So sus.
Which is great. Yeah. And that's the first thing that's sus. It's like if you muzzle the people that have the expertise in the area that you're talking about, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but probably a different podcast.
Yeah. Not a political podcast.
But yeah, that's all I'll say.
Yeah.
And then we went into basically we have a lot of listeners that are entrepreneurs and coaches, and a lot of the listeners that do listen would, you know, prioritize health and fitness, prioritize nutrition.
Yeah.
And how,
like
if
they
they're
think
doing
they're
everything right, how
Yeah.
do they fix the problem?
Yeah. So the question, was around like people come and they think they're doing everything right, but they're still not getting the result. The first thing, which is harsh, is obviously if you were doing everything right, you would have the result. So you're clearly not doing something right, which is hard to accept and sounds a bit harsh, but I think you just got to be direct with people. And I say that to people. The second thing is how do you know what's right? And how do you not know what's right if you don't have a clear assessment and a tangible set of data? Same, I use the analogy of business. When you start a business or in business, you have, you might have a business plan when you start, hopefully. You've got an idea of where you're going. You have some sort of metric for success or some tangible KPIs so you know if you move in the right direction. Most people don't have that when it comes to their health. There's a small percentage of people that do, but I'd say every time I go to speak to a group of entrepreneurs, speak at events, one of the questions I ask tongue in cheek is always, how many of you in the room have a business plan? Like, yeah, awesome. Keep your hand up if you have a health plan. Hands all go down. It's like, interesting. Why would you not treat your health the same way you treat your business when your health is the thing that drives your business? Your health is the thing that drives your relationships, your business, your wealth, your relationships, everything. So it makes no sense that you don't really have a plan or any sort of data for the thing that's, going to drive all those other areas. So that's where the blood test comes in handy, because it's not how do you feel, it's not opinion, it's not what I think is right versus what another person thinks is right. It's like, these are some cold, hard data points. This is what is optimal. This is what is, keep an eye on it. This is urgent attention. This is, you need to do something yesterday. Where do you fall in that spectrum? What are the things that aren't operating very well right now? Is there deficiencies? Is there inflammation? What systems aren't working? And then based off that, we can then give you actual personalized, protocols around nutrition, supplementation, training, lifestyle, sleep, recovery, digestion, gut health, all those things in between. So without that clear data point and an initial assessment, it's going to be very hard for you to actually know if you're doing the right thing. And most people, they say they're doing the right things, but then when I ask them those follow-up questions about how did you get to that conclusion, they're like, oh. But then they have the realization, and then that's when I tell them they should be doing some testing.
So with the testing, you do 3 forms.
Yep.
Blood, stool, DNA.
There's also urine, but that's rare. But I'd say the main 3 I tend to do with people is blood test, stool test, DNA test. They're done at different timeframes based off the individual and what they need.
I'm like, so what is the place that you do the DNA testing through? Like, what do you recommend people go through to like have it done? Is there a difference between like the DNA testing that you do and a difference between like Ancestry.com where people get DNA done?
Because
that's all I think of when I think of DNA testing.
Yeah. So I guess the better term would be like a genetic DNA methylation test.
Right.
Actually, that's probably not even a good description. So I think it's just genetic DNA test, because you can get a methylation test. A methylation is a specific type of process function in the body, but that's just one aspect. So like, for example, there's a pretty popular guy on social media called Gary Brecker who recommends methylation test, genetic methylation test, and it tests, for about 5 genes, and it tests methylation itself. When you do a proper genetic DNA test, the one that I recommend, it's got over hundreds of genes. It's like a 15-page document, and it assesses every single function in your body. It assesses for genetic risk factors. So what risk factors do you have for disease? So if you can pick up on those things 10, 15 years earlier, like, oh, you have a higher chance of getting breast cancer or a higher chance of getting dementia based off your genes.
Get that?
Yeah, because you've got, the way I explain it is your genes, you can't change your genes.
Yeah.
You can change the expression of your genes. So genetics is what you're born with. You can't change that. There's a study called epigenetics, which is the expression of genetics. So what causes your genes to turn on and turn off. So if I was to do your genetic test and it came up and it was like, cool, these are they're called genetic mutations, or essentially, which means like, imagine your body is a computer, and then the genetic test is going to show what's the programming for that computer. How does it work? How's it operating? And then in that operation, where are the potential kinks in the chain? Where are potential short circuits? Where are the things that are potentially, risk it breaking down? And then when you understand those things, you're like, okay, well, I know these pathways aren't working very well. And based off that, maybe this is why you don't respond very well to a certain supplement. Why when you take B12 versus someone else takes B12, you feel super dialed in, and someone else feels the anxiety, and they feel jittery, and they feel super wide. It's like, okay, you're both taking B12. Why is it that you feel amazing and you feel like you're about to have an anxiety attack? Because that person probably has a difference in a certain pathway, and we can pick that up on a genetic test. But we can also pick up, like I was saying, about genetic risk factors for disease. And it doesn't mean that I can magically make that gene go away. But now that you have the awareness of it, imagine I had a client a few months ago who had a genetic risk factor for dementia. And it's like, if you pick this up at 32 years old, versus living your whole life not knowing about it, would you potentially change your habits, routines, and behaviors?
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
That's so
That's crazy.
cool.
100%. But the caveat to it is most people want to do the DNA test straight up, and I say don't do it for at least 3 to 6 months, because if your house is on fire, what's the first thing you want to do?
Put it out.
Put the fire out. So I use the analogy, there's 4 steps through my process. Step 1 is restore, which is basically get the body back to a baseline. And we can understand what that is for you based off your blood test. You're low in this, you're low in this, you're low in that. This is, imbalance, there's inflammation here. The second step is what's causing that in the first place. And that's where the stool test comes in. Because a lot of times, let's say 9 out of 10, probably more than that, probably 9 out of 100, that I look at a stool test, there's some sort of pathogen. So when I say pathogen, like bacteria, parasite, virus, candida is a type of pathogen as well. These types of things that it can be causing stress in the body and creating a lot of the common symptoms that people experience. People don't think when they've got itchy arms, they have candida. They just know they have itchy arms, People don't think when they have hormonal issues or a cycle issue that they've got some sort of viral infection. So when we do that stage 2 with the stool test, we can see what's internally creating stress in the body and creating disruption. And then we can then get rid of that. So the analogy, put the fire out. Once the fire's out, what caused the fire? Once we know what caused the fire, now we want to look at rebuilding our house because there's a bit of damage. And that's phase 3 where you want to build, I say the 3 most important systems in your body: your gut, your immune system, your nervous system. If those 3 systems aren't operating at 100%, then bottom of the food chain, and the bottom of the food chain is your endocrine system, hormones. So think for females, your cycle; for men, your testosterone, your erections, your quality in the bedroom. Those things, your ability to build muscle, lose body fat, all those things are going to go out the window, out the toilet. And the second system from the bottom is your musculoskeletal system, which is ligaments, tendons, muscles. So coming from an osteopathic background, I was like, this is interesting. Pretty much 95% of people who come to see an osteopath have a musculoskeletal issue. And I'd say half of those people also generally come in and say, my back's sore and that's the reason I'm here to see you. But then when I start asking questions about their lifestyle, like, oh yeah, I also get bloated and I also have trouble sleeping and I also get reflux. It's like, interesting. That's not anything to do with your musculoskeletal system, but that's to do with these other systems. And no system in the body works alone, heals alone. Like that would be ridiculous. Like we know that everything works together. So we need to understand that a lot of these symptoms are coming from other systems. And in the medical model, we just look at, okay, you have bloating and it's a gut issue, which would be like me saying your shoulder's sore. Let's just look at your shoulder. And we all know that's stupid from we've definitely developed in the physio world of like, we know that we don't just treat someone's shoulder when their shoulder's sore. So why are we still doing it when it comes to health? Why do we still treat an autoimmune thyroid issue as a thyroid issue? Why do we still treat bloating as a gut issue? Why do we still treat brain fog as a brain issue? Like it's not, rarely is it ever the actual organ or the system that's the problem. So when we go through that system, it's like, yeah, step 1, step 2, step 3. And then once we get to step 3 and we've put the fire out, we figured out what caused the fire, we've rebuilt your house. Now we want to make your house sexy. We want to do renovations. Yeah, we want to chuck a nice couch in. We want to do a new alarm system. We want to, put a front yard in, get a pool, yeah, get the nice blinds. And that would be where the DNA test comes in. It's like now that we've dealt with the immediate problem, let's understand what are your risk factors and how can we optimize your biology, because we know exactly how you're wired, what's working well, what's not working so well. And now we can truly customize like your supplements, your nutrition, your training. But I think if you're trying to make your house pretty when your house is on fire, you're kind of missing the point. So that's why I usually pull the brakes on people. I'm like, hey, you've got other things to deal with first. There's no point trying to deadlift 200 kilos when you don't know how to, hinge without a bar. Let's do that first, and then let's build you up over time, and then let's focus on optimization.
That is so interesting. Do you find it interesting doing it? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Wouldn't spend a day doing it. 100%. Yeah, it's a slight obsession, but I think that's why I'm good at it, because I get very into the weeds and can all of a sudden be 8 hours later and I'm reading 10 articles on the same thing.
Where do you go to have all these tests?
That was your question before. So, I mean, blood tests, you got 2 options. You got the first option is go see a GP. I would say this is a very small percentage option of actually getting what you want, because you may have experienced this once or twice. Someone listening to this may have experienced it. You're not feeling quite 100%. So you go to the doctor and you say, I want to get all these tests. And they say that it's not necessary because you don't have a problem that's big enough yet, or you don't have a rationale for it. And there's a reason for this. Again, this comes back to APRA. APRA will audit the doctors in terms of what they're prescribing. And if I just come in and I'm perfectly healthy, but I've got a few, low ball symptoms like brain fog and fatigue, and I'm like, hey, doc, I want you to give me 120 markers of testing that's going to cost the medical system $500. He's going to say, well, why should I do that? Oh, I just want to be proactive about my health because I'm being proactive. I'm doing the right thing. It's like, cool, I get that. But if I get audited and you have given me I can't tick any of the boxes for those tests, then they're going to ask me why I prescribed that test. And then it's his ass. So I used to be a bit like, doctors are assholes, they don't prescribe anything. But I get it, because if I prescribed you all these thyroid tests and you have no symptoms of thyroid problems, well, why'd you prescribe that? Then he's getting in trouble from APRA. So it can be quite challenging to get everything you want from the doc, unless you get a really good one. So my recommendation is to do them privately online. The two main websites I utilize are iScreen and iMedical, and you can do it yourself. You don't need a prescription. You can just jump on and do it. In saying that, I would steer clear of just going rogue and ordering a blood test on your own without at least seeking out a practitioner or someone who has an idea, because one, it's overwhelming. There's 100 tests. Which one do you choose? Which one do you need? You probably don't know which one you need, because, if you did, you'd probably be a practitioner. So that's the second option. When it comes to DNA and stool testing, you can get variations of the stool test and DNA tests from that website, iScreen. But I use a private one, which is a practitioner one called Nutripath, which you need to be a licensed practitioner to use. You can prescribe it directly for patients, and it's a lot cheaper and also a lot more better quality, in my opinion. I think it's like $400 for a stool test on Nutripath, and it's like $700 on iScreen. So the details in the Nutripath one are like definitely chalk and cheese. So I think, when it comes to bloods, or when it comes to any testing, I would say don't just go rogue. Find a practitioner, do a consult, figure out what you need, and then go through them.
Yeah.
Which is what you should do when you go see a GP. But unfortunately, like 9 times out of 10, they're going to say that we can't give you everything. And that's really annoying for me. Like I always tell people, if you're going to work with me, let's just do this blood test. It's worth $150. If you pay $6 for an overpriced latte every day and you do that for 30 days for a month, there's $180. There's your blood test. You do that twice a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you go see a doctor and they give you 30% of the markers, it's like coming to me with a puzzle and saying, solve this puzzle, but I'm only going to give you 30% of the pieces. Like, I'm pretty good and I can probably figure it out, but it'd be a lot easier to figure out and be more specific if you gave me the whole puzzle.
Be a lot quicker to get it done if I had all of the pieces.
I have low iron. What do you think? And they just give me the iron studies. I'm like, oh, I can't see anything else about what's happening in your body. Like I can see the irons though. That's pretty obvious, but like, do you just want me to give you an iron tablet, or do you want me to figure out what's causing the low iron in the first place? And to do that, I need to see everything else.
Yeah. And we were talking about a story of like me getting a blood test before, and it's pretty much like that first experience. But like she was so rude.
You
and like
fight for it, eh?
even as like a female doctor, I was like, it was when I first started with Josh, and Josh was like, if you can get one, great. He was like, if you don't want to pay for one, like don't worry about it. But if you can get one through your doctor, like cool, sweet, we'll see what they can like give us to look at, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I had just like a phone consult with her, because I was like, oh, I'll just book in for any doctor that I can, like as soon as I can, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because my normal doctor that I saw was like away. Anyway, and so like had a phone consult, and I was like, hey, like I'm just wanting to check like how everything's going. I've had previous like history of like low iron and B12, and then I've also now got a like an IUD, so I want to see where my hormone levels are at and blah blah blah, like all this stuff. And she was like, no. And I was like, well, why can't we see like where it all is?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, do you have a problem? And
Yeah.
I was like, well, I have in the past, so I'd like to see where they're at. She was like, well, we can test your iron. And I was like, but I've got this new ID. My hormones would be different. They'd be at different levels. And she's like, but that would be keeping it stable. And I'm like, stable at what? Like at what level is it being kept stable then?
Yeah.
And she was like, but it's looking after it all. And I was like, what if it's not? Anyway, and I went back and forth. She was like, if you want it done, get it privately. And I was like, okay. And it was just so rude. Like, and I was just like, okay, cool. This is great. I love this. So yeah, anyway, she was really rude. And it was
The one thing she did correct was not give you a hormone test, because hormone tests are useless if you're on contraception. Like you won't, it's like it's all going to be skewed, but definitely should still do a full blood test. So there's like two main sections. You got like the metabolic panel, which is like full blood, like red blood cells, white blood cells, your immune system, liver, kidneys, iron, cholesterol, thyroid. If you can get all that at least, that's 80% of the puzzle, and you can get a pretty good understanding of what's happening. But hormones are, I always say to girls, if you're going through menopause, if you're on some sort of contraception, kind of wasting your money spending the extra $100 on the hormone test.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it was nothing. It was not allowed to do anything.
Just having a bad day, clearly.
Yeah, I was like, she's a very angry lady.
How dare you ask for help?
Yeah, I was like,
someone who's dedicated their life to helping.
Yeah. Anyway, and then so Josh was like, look, we'll just start our coaching. We'll see how you go. If anything's like weird or not doing what it's meant to do, then let's go to the private route. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I think your blood test is like the equivalent of getting your car, serviced every 10,000 kilometers. You don't just wait for your car to break down, lose a tire, or the engine to blow up. Hopefully not. Some people.
You want to catch it beforehand.
Yeah, it's like if you're driving and the red light starts flashing, what do? Saying check engine light. What do you do?
Check the engine.
Might pull over, hopefully.
I love that you ask us things. I'm like, I don't know.
I'm just a girl. I call my dad.
I just like ignore it, keep driving. Please work.
It's like, have you ever heard the analogy, the feather, the brick, and the bus?
No.
Ooh, it's a good one. So I think when it comes to, like, it's an analogy in life where it's like generally something in life will happen where it's like the feather might be something small and you kind of ignore it. Like maybe it's a conversation you're avoiding, then like you avoid it for a while, and then along comes the brick, and the brick kind of hurts a bit more. You get punched in the face and it's like, oh shit. And you keep ignoring it, and then eventually you get hit by the bus. And then usually the bus is something that's like a more sinister life event. I guess a serious, not serious, I guess like an extreme version, but like in a version I talk about when it comes to gut health would be, the feather would be food sensitivities, bloating after a meal. You just ignore it. It doesn't really hurt too much. It doesn't cause enough pain for you to like actually do anything about it, but it's just inconvenient. Then the brick comes along, and the brick might be, okay, now you're diagnosed, from a doctor with leaky gut or parasites or IBS, which is a terrible diagnosis. And then you ignore it for another 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, and then eventually that turns into bowel cancer. And it's like, okay, now that's the bus. Like that's pretty significant. So most people are sort of somewhere stuck, like in that yellow orange zone. We're talking like you're kind of transitioning from feather to brick, and it's enough to be annoying, but it's generally not enough to like promote you to do something about it, unless you're in the top 10% of people who like are proactive. But most people just tend to ignore those things, and they wait till the bus comes along. And then when they get diagnosed in the doctor's office with disease or cancer or autoimmunity, then it's like, oh shit, now I want to do something about it. So the whole idea of functional medicine, I guess, is like you're trying to work with people in the first 2/3 of the journey to stop them getting to the final third. And if you do that successfully, that's going to take millions of dollars away from the health system, because like the health system spends millions of dollars every year on trying to treat these people. I did can't remember the exact figures, but I had a client ask me about like getting a colonoscopy, and I wish I knew the numbers, but it was like it was wild. They spent something like, I want to say it was definitely in the trillions of dollars on colonoscopies every year.
What?
And like that's obviously a preventative tool to make sure people don't have bowel cancer, which is great if you're over the age of 40, 50 and you have risk factors. Like definitely should be a good preventative. But for someone who's 25, got bloating, eats like shit, hasn't really been asked these questions first, like what's your diet, what are all these things? Maybe we should try and clean these things up first. Just straight to a colonoscopy, and we're not really gonna do anything about it. Pretty wild. I was like, what if you spent that money on educating the doctors that get 6 weeks of training in nutrition and everyone else to then teach people how to eat properly so they don't destroy their gut, so they don't need a colonoscopy and they don't get bowel cancer? That might make more sense. But depending on how tinfoil hat you want to go, it's like, well, they also make a lot of money from medications, and you can't medicate sick, healthy people.
In your opinion, do you think a lot of diseases are preventable?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously you have to be careful around it. But do you feel like a lot of it is just triggered from basic health?
I mean, I would look at it and go, how much disease did you have in 1920 versus 2020? What's changed between the last century? What are the main things that have changed?
Yeah.
Highly palatable processed foods, less connection with relationships in society, more social media, more technology, more pesticides, more toxins in our food and our environment. It's like environment's changed, and therefore now you've got more people coming down with autoimmunity, cancer, disease than ever before, even though we have the most amount of research and most amount of education than ever before. So I would say that 99% of disease is lifestyle-based disease. So if lifestyle caused it, then theoretically, I'm not saying, but if potentially this thing caused it and you change that thing, would you potentially think the outcome might change? It's just cause and effect. If this is the cause, lifestyle, which is poor habit, like people, I guess when we talked before about genetics, I'm going to get cancelled, aren't I? So genetics, you're born with it. And the old school, I guess, thought process is bad luck, bad genetics, which is that empowering or disempowering for you? If you got diagnosed with a disease and I said it's bad luck, bad genetics, do you have any control over that?
No. You don't think that you do.
Yeah. Versus epigenetics, which is the expression of genetics, what causes the genes to turn on and off, which is generally, essentially there's this thing in the body called allostatic load, which is the accumulation of all different types of stresses. And we have stresses which are emotional. So think emotional stress can be relationships, finances, lifestyle-based stresses. And then we have environmental. This can be toxins, food quality, water quality, air quality, exposure to things like EMF and radiation. You've then got physical stresses. This can be overtraining, undereating, poor nutrition, breakdown of your gut barrier, breakdown of your immune system. These are all different types of stresses. It's not just like we have one stress bucket for my relationship and one stress bucket for training. It's like you have accumulation of stress. And if the amount of stress you're exposed to is exceeding your body's capacity to handle stress, then we end up going down this pathway of being chronically stressed and chronically sympathetically driven in our fight and flight nervous system. That's very catabolic, which in English means your body's breaking itself down. When your body's stuck in this chronic stress response, it's going to activate these genes, which you're more susceptible to, which is a very simple way of explaining it. Okay. So if we look at it that way and go, okay, well, epigenetics is the expression of genetics and what turns on and off genes. If we work backwards and go, okay, what's turning on and off genes? What are the stresses we're currently exposed to? Oh, you're drinking alcohol, you're smoking, you're drinking toxic water, eating toxic food, in toxic relationships, exposed to all these toxins in your environment. Then maybe if we got rid of those things or limited our exposure to those things, we could potentially be healthier. And a lot of those things that we are exposed to now, we weren't exposed to 100 years ago, or the amount that we were exposed to was significantly less. So yeah, I would say based off that logic, just looking at it from a cause and effect perspective, it's going, okay, well, you did these things and it caused this. So maybe if we do the opposite of those things or stop doing those things, we could potentially have a different outcome. And that's a lot more empowering because now you're going from bad luck and bad genetics to, bad habits, bad lifestyle, bad behaviors. And do you have control over your habits and your behaviors? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you change those habits and behaviors for long enough, you can start to reverse, lower the inflammation. Chronic stress is the root of all disease. And you can control those things. Inflammation.
I was literally just about to ask you the role of stress and you just answer it.
It's I have a nice diagram of this, which is basically that you got 8 different types of stresses, which I condensed into 3, but 8 different types of stresses, which then lead to chronic stress. So like I think acute stress is fine. If I'm going to deadlift really heavy, or I'm in a fight, or I have to run away from a tiger, it's like pretty good time for cortisol to kick in and make me run faster, have better vision, have blood flow in my extremities, don't really need to digest food right now. Good to be stressed. But like we get stressed and then we should swing back into homeostasis, which is balance. If I spend 90% of my day in stress, which is being in that sympathetic state, your fight and flight mode, if we go into what's happening chemically, we've all heard of cortisol. Mm-hmm. So cortisol, have you ever been stressed and you might have said something dumb to a partner before?
Yeah.
And then afterwards you're like, fuck, sorry, baby, that wasn't me. That was Patricia. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you wonder why you were a bit cuckoo at that time? The reason is cortisol diverts blood flow away from your vital organs and towards your extremities. Because if you want to run fast and get away from a tiger, is it more important to have blood flow in your limbs, which make you run fast, or in your gut to digest food and in your prefrontal cortex to make decisions and think?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So you have less blood flow in your prefrontal cortex. So one for the business owners, if you needed any reason to work on your health and work on your stress, you're literally dumber every time you're stressed and you're making poorer decisions. You have less mental clarity and you're making poor decisions because you have less blood flow in your prefrontal cortex, which is where you make decisions, executive function, because you're acting like an animal all day and living in your hindbrain, which is basically just food, water, sex, and get things done, task orientated. So circling back, when you have high levels of stress, that's this effect cognitively. But the other thing I mentioned was blood flow gets directed away from your vital organs, your heart, your lungs, your liver, your kidneys, your gut. Does it sound like a good idea for you to spend majority of your day with 80% of your oxygen nutrients, the key things to survival, not being around your key organs for survival? Do you think maybe those organs might get a bit starved and maybe start to get sick and maybe even be in a state of dis-ease rather than a state of ease. Because that's all the word disease is, right? Dis-ease. They're no longer at ease. So maybe if we could manage stress and not be sympathetically driven for so long, we could divert blood flow and nutrients back to the organs so the organs can now be well nourished and flourish. Does that answer your question about disease and lifestyle?
Yeah, wow. I'm just mind blown over here.
So I feel like I've opened 3 loops in this conversation. So like to close that off, it's like stress, like chronic stress. Acute stress is fun. Chronic stress leads to us living chronically in a sympathetic dominant state where our body obviously is releasing all this cortisol. And then chronic stress with cortisol is very catabolic. So think anabolic steroids. You're trying to grow, amazing. You take steroids. Okay, not the best things to do, but we all understand what anabolic means. So catabolic is the opposite. It's breaking you down. So your body's going to eat itself. It's going to eat away at tissue. It's going to eat away at muscle. I mean, in particular, connective tissue. In particular, collagen, which we all know is skin, hair, nails, fountain of youth. Collagen is the main type of protein that wraps around your intestinal lining. If I took my intestine out right now and I put it in this room, it'd probably be enough to layer the whole room. Like it's really long. Like we can go through a tennis court. So imagine that. And then imagine 360 degrees around your intestine is wrapped with collagen. You would agree that's a lot of collagen? So if I'm cortisol and I'm really hungry and I want to eat collagen, where am I going?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm probably going to break down areas that have collagen, which is, the gut lining is a massive one, connective tissue, tendons. So then you start to see a bunch of people that have breakdown of their gut lining. They have connective tissue issues all the time. Oh, I've always got muscle strains. I've always got, tendinopathies. Like I'm always injured. They start to look old in their face. They've got poor skin, all these other things. But if we look at the gut barrier, your gut is where 70% of your immune system lives. It's where 90% of your neurotransmitters are produced. So dopamine, serotonin. So now we're looking at cognitive function is going to go down. Immune system function is going to go down. You're going to start to get sick more often. But more importantly, when your when your gut barrier breaks down, you're now allowing for things like toxins, chemicals, pathogens to enter your bloodstream because your gut essentially acts as a fishnet. Imagine a fishnet that has tiny little holes in it. It's going to allow for nutrients to come through, but it keeps out the bad guys like toxins and pathogens and bacteria and things that are potentially in your food, in your environment that we're exposed to every day. You can't completely eliminate exposure to toxins. It's impossible. So people are live in a low tox lifestyle. It's good, but don't get too pedantic where you don't go outside and you live in bubble wrap. But if that gut barrier starts to break down and it looks like a fishnet, imagine your fishnet looks like this. Now there's these massive holes in it where you're not just absorbing nutrients, you're now absorbing toxins and pathogens and bacteria and things that shouldn't be there. When those things get into your bloodstream, that's going to trigger your immune system to go and fight and try and kill these things because they're foreign, which is then going to create a state of inflammation. Again, acute inflammation, not a bad thing. If I train at the gym, I damage my bicep, I'm inflamed for 24 hours, my bicep gets bigger, stronger, I repair, recover, and I adapt. If you're constantly stressed, you're constantly inflamed, and you're in a state of chronic stress, chronic inflammation, your body's constantly breaking itself down, you're constantly starving your vital organs and these areas of your body of oxygen and nutrients, what do you think is going to happen? Are you going to be healthy or are you going to be potentially going down the path of disease? And this doesn't happen over a week or a month. It happens over 3, 5, 10 years. And then the problem is people are so hyper-focused on, I'm just going on a tangent here, sorry. The problem is people get so hyper-focused on what is the one thing that's causing my problem? It's not one thing. It's probably if I look back over the last 5, 10 years of your life and your history and my intake form and your blood work, I can tell you exactly what you've been doing 5 years ago and why you got to this point. And it's not just you had to change that one thing, that one supplement, that one nutrition. It's you've been living a lifestyle that's created a state of stress and disease, and now we're here where we are. And if it's taken you 5 years to get there, it's probably going to take you at least 12 months to get out of it. Don't expect some 8-week, 12-week one-off consult and a 12-week supplement protocol. Obviously,
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me. People don't. It might help you from going from being a 6 to a 7, or it might help you from being unable to get out of bed every day to then getting out of bed. But by no means have you dealt with the underlying root causes that are still there. So that's why I say if you're going to really dedicate time to your health properly, same as a business, you wouldn't expect to build a 20K a month business in 2 months. It might take you 6 months to get there, and then it's probably going to take you 6 months of refinement, and then another 12 months to go from 20 to 50K, and then you get a whole other set of problems, and then you have to do the whole process again. Same thing. It's plan, get there, and then we're constantly refining and adjusting and making sure that you're constantly performing at that level.
Love that. That
Wow.
was very knowledgeable, so much information out of that. Time has flown. But thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
Not a website with testimonials. Just social media. I'm pretty useless when it comes to the internet. So yeah, Instagram is dr.daniel.kirkbride. That's probably the best place to find me. Heaps of free content with everything we talked about today. And I guess I always forget to mention, but if people did want to get a blood test done and they weren't sure where to go, we have a link where it refers you to the exact blood test you need to take, completely free, what blood tests to get, what markers to ask for. And yeah, you can just go through there and do that. So if you're having problems, easy way to get started.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. There's so much valuable information in there to learn, but yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me and listening to my tangents.
Yeah,
It was great. I learned so much. Well,
And-
thank you everyone for listening.
yeah, we'll talk to you next week. Bye.